Reveal has built-in data limits, which are put in place to ensure that your client does not lock or that you run out of memory. However, you do have control over how to set those data limits. In the documentation, you'll see that there's a 200 megabyte limit when downloading files, 10 million cells in a data grid, or 64 million characters, which is all the cells combined. You can modify these properties like max download size, max memory, max cells, etc. in your code across all of the platforms. At the same time, when you're working with exports like exporting to Excel, PDF, or PowerPoint, you have control over how many cells are exported as well. If we jump over to my application, you'll see I have added a couple of settings like max memory and cells, max total string size. These are upwards of like 10 billion or something very large, 100 billion, 10 billion, something like that, very large numbers. But in the export, in my headless export here, so I have an API for headless export, I've set this to a 150 million cell max. So that means it'll cover all of the cells that are in my spreadsheet. For example, my demo is going to be 1 million rows in 9 columns. So I am giving plenty of room for those 9 million cells. Keep in mind, there is a 1 million or a little bit greater than that limit to a single sheet in Excel. So just be aware of that. We will not go and start adding additional sheets. So if we take a look at my dashboards here, I have several dashboards I created. This one has different aggregations, different charts on it. This is just a simple grid. Let's go and export this using our headless export. So my log over on the left-hand side says that this started its export at 5:10 p.m. and then we'll get a notification when it finishes. It probably will take between 30 seconds and a minute. All of the factors that go into the performance of your application go into the performance of exporting to Excel. So how quickly does your grid load is going to be about the same as what the headless export will do. How much RAM, how much free space on your server, how many users are hitting it at the same time. All of that plays into the general performance of your application. So in my grid, you'll see here as the export is occurring, my memory consumption's being used up. So in the .NET debugger, it's very straightforward. And my log, again, was at 5:10 p.m. And now my export's completed. Took about 57 seconds. So let's open this up in Excel. This spreadsheet is roughly, I think it was around 90 megabytes during my testing. So between 80 and 90 megabytes for this, but you can see I have all the way down to 1 million plus rows in my spreadsheet. If I go to my complex dashboard, we'll go to my overflow, click my custom button to do my headless export to Excel, and we will go ahead and speed this up a bit. So that took about 45 seconds. We'll open this guy up. And again, this was roughly the same size Excel spreadsheet. I just have more sheets in it, but those sheets are relatively small. This will take a few seconds to load. So I've got my count of orders, and you can see all of my different tabs across the bottom. My companies by country, I think there's a couple hundred, maybe 240, 250. Some of those aggregates were in a grid, a pivot grid. My employees by country, then ultimately the list of the million rows of my grid. So everything exported as I expected. And when you are doing this, you should expect a similar same performance. My server is on Azure SQL. I have a 20 DTU server, which prior to my testing, really getting into the numbers, was around a 5 DTU server. So upping the DTUs on Azure gave me a little bit more performance and horsepower, which improved the overall speed from which my dashboards were loading. It didn't necessarily affect my exports, but my dashboards were definitely loading faster with the higher number of DTUs. So I think I was still between 40 and maybe 30 seconds in a minute for my exports. But as I am reloading these individual dashboards and hitting refresh, the cache is clearing. I'm actually requerying the data. The aggregates are requerying, and you can see that the performance is pretty good across the board for these dashboards. And then once they are run, they're in the cache. I have my cache, I think it's set to once a day or whatever that default happens to be. So they're going to load pretty quickly on subsequent loads, but that does not affect the export. So the export is still going to go ahead and load based on the performance of your server. So that's how you can extend the data size of your exports with Reveal.